We're delighted to be joined today by Katharina Wincor, who will be conducting the Phoenix Symphony March 14th through 16th. Katharina, welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
And we're so thrilled to welcome you to Phoenix. This will be your debut with our orchestra. It's a terrific program. Before we talk a little bit about what we're going to be performing March 14th through 16th, I know our audience would be very interested to learn a little bit more about you. Originally from Austria, you've led orchestras around the world, United States, Europe, and had an incredible career. And just loved a little bit to learn about your journey. How did you become a musician, and what led you to become a conductor?
Yeah, so I grew up in a musical family and in Austria, in a very small town and a very sort of traditional family. Both my parents are music teachers. My father is a violin teacher and my mother a singing teacher. And so also I have three older sisters. So I grew up in a household that was kind of noisy and everyone was playing instruments and to a certain extent I would say there were the toys that we had at home. We had a lot of very tiny violins, and there's a picture of me where I'm maybe 1.5 years old on the bathroom floor and I'm cleaning with a wet cloth a violin. So that's how I grew up. And I did learn to respect the instruments at a certain point as well, I have to say. And so eventually when I went to elementary school, I did play a little bit the violin, but I also gave that up because I was interested in so many other things, instruments and all sort of things actually. I learned the piano for a long time, but I was not so diligent, I have to admit. And then I played the oboe when I was in middle school, high school. I took that somewhat seriously, to as much as you can take that seriously at that age, I guess. And played a lot of youth orchestra, sang a lot in choir and all of that. And I would say what made me then think that I would want to try conducting was exactly this, that I was always allowed to try things. And I'm very, very lucky for that. And I was around 17, so I graduated high school at 19. And 2 years before I graduated, I had the chance to try conducting. Of course, I mean, looking back, it was nothing what I was doing, but it was exciting and so it was just this timing that I thought, that's interesting. I think I want to study that.
Well,
And yeah, then I went to Vienna, went to school there, and eventually it turned professional.
wonderful. I too used to play the oboe, by the way. So interesting to hear that you were an oboist at one point. So I'm sure there are some orchestras that you've worked with many times over the years. And then in this case, you're going to be coming and on the podium, leading an orchestra and working with musicians for the first time. Could you talk a little bit, what's that like to get to know an ensemble and musicians that you haven't worked with before, and yet only a few days later, after that first meeting, you're presenting incredible concerts? How does that happen?
Well, I mean, the thing is, we are all used to that kind of time management, if you want to say it like that, that we rehearse for 2, 3, 4 days, and then we have to be there. And so we are all, the orchestra musicians are very used to that, and they are also used to seeing new people. And I'm also quite used at that point to encountering new orchestras. Of course, it can be a bit nerve-wracking, especially the first rehearsal, because I have no idea what kind of group I'm gonna meet. Usually for the conductors, it's really the first rehearsal that's the most exciting, but can be a little scary at times. And then we actually tend to be very calm when the concert comes. And maybe some of the musicians are more nervous in the concert, though. That's how it is. Of course, I haven't been so long in this business, and in the first few projects that I did, of course, everything was new. The job in general, each orchestra was new, and the repertoire. And so now what I try to do, what I have somewhat in control, is choosing repertoire that I know I feel a good connection with that. Then if that is if I feel strong with a piece, then I can present it to the orchestra, hopefully in a way that they can agree with. And usually that's one key how to get there.
Let's talk a little bit about the program. This is a remarkable program. I am particularly excited about what you've programmed for these concerts. Mozart Symphony Number 39, Strauss Suite by Rosenkavalier, and then the extraordinary Liszt First Piano Concerto. Talk a little bit about the program and why these pieces, and how do you think about them, coming together in this program that we're going to be playing in mid-March.
Right. So I love the program. I think all the pieces are unbelievably good pieces. There is something in the build-up of the program that's maybe a tiny bit unusual, which is that we play a symphony in the first half of the concert, and that's the entire first half. Usually, most of the time, we have an opener, concerto, break, symphony. Now we start with a symphony, and there is a reason for that. Because the Mozart 39th Symphony, it's one of his last 3 symphonies. Obviously, he was at the end of his life. He was never old. He didn't become that old. But he wrote those 3 symphonies within a couple of weeks, and they sort of seem to belong together. He was not commissioned to write them, and so there was really something that was not usual back then. Usually they would receive the commission and write a particular piece, and it was performed then. We don't even know that the pieces were performed when he was alive. And so 39 was the first of those 3. And it seems like those 3 pieces can be considered to be sort of a mega symphony. And the first one has a huge introduction, then normal movements, and then it doesn't really have an ending. And that's the reason why we play it at the beginning of the concert. It opens the concert perfectly, and it ends in a way actually that we want to continue to play. And there have been other concerts in the world where then you play Mozart 40 and then you play Mozart 41, which is actually beautiful. It's one theory. There are reasons that speak against this concept, but I think it's a beautiful idea. So with that, we go in the break, and then that's why we have the concerto afterwards. It's a Liszt concerto with Michelle Cann, American pianist. I'm super excited to work with her. I think I met her once briefly, but we haven't really worked on a concerto before. And the Liszt concerto is very short. It's less than 20 minutes. But it's a bit special in its form, something that was not typical back then, that it's 4 very short movements, which is more than a typical concerto has. And they are written attacca, so that means that one movement leads directly into the next, and you cannot just stop. You cannot take one movement out. It really goes one into the next. And the themes and the motives there is some relations that the beginning comes later on and so on. So it's actually quite special. And Liszt, he took more than 2 decades to write this. So he really worked on perfectioning the piece even after he first performed it. So that's why it became a really great piece.
We're thrilled to have Grammy-winning Michelle Cann with us and performing this. Can talk about what's it like to accompany someone? I mean, how does that work when you have that give and take with the guest artist? What do you think about to be a great accompanist?
Well, generally accompanying is you never know. Just with the orchestra, it's the same thing, but with a soloist, you never quite know exactly how they are as a musician, how they react, or also some soloists, they do in concert crazy things, which can be the most fantastic thing, but it can also be a bit dangerous. But ideally, actually with soloists, I have to say it's the best if they do something in the concert that is a bit unexpected, because it does not only draw the attention from the audience, but really from the orchestra. And that's the thing, what we, orchestra and me, really enjoy is when there's something that just it's like a magnet.
Yes.
That it makes us accompany, because accompanying, it's a bit tricky. We have to sort of guess when everything is going to happen, because we always have to be the secondary thing, or most of the time at least. But it has to be together. And so we have to be extremely alert. That's why I find it oftentimes very healthy within the rehearsing process for the orchestra, because we all have to be awake. There's no way around that. So yeah, it's just like with meeting a new orchestra, you never quite know how a soloist functions, and I'm very excited to find that out.
It's all going to make the concert all the more exciting. And then after the Liszt, then the suite from de Rosenkavalier. What an incredible piece of music.
Unbelievable piece. Of course, the whole opera is an unbelievable piece, but we can't play the whole opera, unfortunately. Yeah, the suite, it's some of the most beautiful moments of music that have ever been written. It's incredible. I mean, Rosenkavalier is an opera that's very entertaining. It's a little bit like what Figaro was in Mozart's time. It's a story where there's a lot of mix-ups. People dress up as someone. Everyone cheats on everyone. It's pretty crazy, all the things that happen, and it makes it a very funny opera. But of course, there are some very profound, very serious moments also, and essentially 4 scenes, musical scenes, are taken out of that for the suite. So some of those are actually, the first scene is the way that the opera opens. So the curtain opens and you're in the bedroom, and there is a married woman with someone who is not her husband, and so that's the moral base that the opera starts with. And then that's the first scene. The second scene we experience in the suite is where there is a engagement happening, but this guy, his name is Octavian, he goes and he proposes in the name of someone else to a young woman, but then he himself falls for her, and yeah, a lot of drama around that. But the proposal scene it's just beautiful. The singers are missing a little bit, but of course it's all played by other instruments.
I remember playing this suite when I was an oboist. There's such lush, incredible music. And when we think about the opera, there's so many twists and turns in the story, and it often seems that nothing is what it seems. And
absolutely. It's a crazy storyline, and at the end, though, it gets very sincere also, where the woman, she's called the Marschallin, who is married, and her boyfriend that she had on the side fell in love with another young lady. She knows she has to give up their relationship, and they are in love, they belong together. It's a very serious moment at the end, actually quite sad also. But this is the famous terzet, so 3 singers on stage. In our case, the orchestra, incredibly beautiful, just like the rest of the music, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
This is a remarkable program. I'm so excited to have you join us. Now, there's also a secret 4th piece on the program, a mystery piece. Now, what we've invited you to consider is to program a mystery piece that was relatively short, but somehow connected to the rest of the pieces. And although we're not going to reveal the name of the piece today, would you give us any hints about what it might be?
Yes, I think I would like to give a hint about the composer, who I'm sure everyone knows, or at least everyone knows some music of his. Mm-hmm. A composer who grew up in Vienna and eventually went to the States. And the piece refers to Viennese music, that I can say for sure, just as, 2 of the composers of the program were obviously in Vienna. It's one of the most interesting composers, and I'm very much looking forward to discovering this piece and discovering more of him, because he has written every genre that you can imagine that was available in his lifetime. And so I'm looking forward to give just a little glimpse of his work.
Wonderful. And if we want to find out what it is, and we need to get a ticket to the concerts, March 14th through 16th. I have one final question for you. And we have people of all ages who come to our concerts, including young people. And wondering, if there is a young aspiring musician who's coming to one of these concerts, is there anything special that they should be listening for? when they come to hear our orchestra perform under your leadership on the podium?
Oh my God. I mean, there is so much to listen for. I think what's just wonderful is that we have three such different styles. And with that, we get to know all the difficulties and all the challenges. I mean, if you talk of aspiring musicians, you will hear Mozart is just such a filigrane. I don't know if you have that word in English, but it's the music. It's so you have to take such good care of it, and it's the greatest music ever written. And then, well, of course, the Liszt is especially for pianists and for percussionists interesting. It's kind of a triangle concerto as well, funnily enough. And in Strauss, there are a huge amount of solos. So actually, whatever is your favorite instrument, there's probably gonna be a big solo. So a lot of things to be attentive to.
Wonderful. These are going to be just fantastic performances. Katharina Wincor, we're so looking forward to welcome you to Phoenix and look forward to seeing you in mid-March. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Can't wait to be there.